All right. How's it going, everybody? Today is Thursday, July 31st, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Just want to say good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody out there listening and listening later. I'm your co host, Frank Spicer, CEO and co founder of MetaFide. With us, you have Roaming Crypto, our trusty mod, community extraordinaire, and see some familiar faces right now. Today's topic of discussion is basically how we went from idea to where we are now. So we're going to be going through that a bit. Um, Also, we have the market right now. It's holding steady in the Bitcoin's at 118K ish, and it's made a couple runs and flirted with 119. It's been up there and back a little bit, and ETH is holding steady at about 37.88. So that's good news for the DeFi markets. The fear and greed index has cooled off a bit, so things are sort of right sizing themselves and settling into a channel before it inevitably goes on its next run. And we'll be discussing about why we are fairly certain that's going to happen. But for now, I think we're going to make a little trip down memory lane and catch up how we got here and why we made some of the decisions we made, and how it's eventually got to the Surge platform and predictive games. But we've gone through a lot of discovery to get here, so it'd be pretty interesting to recap, because sometimes it's good for us to know where we came from, right? Uh, we're going to bring in Roaming for his part of this, because he's joined us sort of as we became more focused, and he'll have his take on kind of what it's been like since then. But if you go back, I think in order to tell the story, you got to go back to one of the co-founders, Gunnar Link. He's our CFO and co-founder. Um, Gunnar and I were at a company called Tala AI in Boston together, and Tala was a chatbot focused company that we sort of saw GPT coming, and all the LLMs that were about to come into the market in 2021, and we realized we didn't have hundreds of millions or billions to invest in the development of LLMs, but we had some interesting technology there where we could kind of read documents, and then from there set up processes. So COVID had essentially made it almost impossible to transfer knowledge face to face inside companies, and we said, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're gonna take what we've built, and we're gonna move to this thing called robotic process automation. Uh, can everybody hear me? I just want to see if everybody can hear me out there. Give me a thumbs up if you can. All right, cool, thanks. Um, yeah, so essentially, we decided, the way that you really get like an invoice paid if you're trying to get something done is you go stand next to Bob in accounting, and Bob will tell you, hey, this is what you do, this is how you do it. And we realized that no longer, people were working remotely. People that were formerly in offices were just all over the place trying to just make it work. So what we decided to do was, you know, understand all the company's process and documents, and then when something like that came up, you're like, oh, okay, you're trying to get an invoice paid. Well, in order to get an invoice paid, you need to check this box, fill this form, put this person on it. And we started linking together all the corporate processes that would go with a typical face-to-face transfer, and we were able to raise the contract value of that from like $8,000 to, I don't know, like 160 something $1,000, and built a pretty good business out of it, and essentially just sold the company in 2021. And on the on the other side of that, decided, well, what do we really want to do? So I've been buying Bitcoin since the 2010, for the reason Satoshi put in the Genesis block, as a protest against central banking policies and quantitative easing and deflation, devaluing the money supply through inflation. I guess I was kind of one of those original libertarian nerds that thought this was going to, be pretty good for the people using the money and using it as a mechanism of transfer. So I bought in right away. I thought this is going to be awesome. and hasn't disappointed. It's actually been pretty great seeing what's come of it, because I feel like we're just now, like we talked about last week, mainstreaming crypto and the new decentralized way to set up monetary policy and transfers and stuff like that. So when I finally had a chance to say, well, what do we want to do? That was my fourth exit, fifth exit actually, as a either an exec or a founder, and things have been pretty good. I've had a bit of success, but nothing seemed more important to me than making sure that I wasn't going to leave my kids to a world with that was, you know, at the behest of people who were literally working against the people holding the money. If you're a worker and you're using your labor to get paid, it didn't seem like a very fair world, right? Where you're gonna be in a in a situation where you're constantly giving up your labor and then trying to save some of it, and then somebody comes along and inflates it away from you, right? So that didn't seem like the right thing to do, and it seemed like what made sense was trying to find a way for that system to work, because I could also see, right around 2022, could also see people, um, you know, maybe not with the best interest of the community at heart, right? So you saw people coming through, sort of grifters, people rugging people, and I was like, okay, well, this is obviously going to destroy this thing that we're just on the verge of building. So what can we do to fix it, right? And and Gunnar and Matt and I had an idea, that we were going to try to understand which assets were real and which were fake. So we built a rating system. Matt was still actually at a venture fund, so if he was here to tell his side of the story, he saw a bunch of the projects on the other side that were coming through, came to the same conclusion. So as we're all talking, we're like, well, let's build a rating system and help people steer themselves around toxic assets, and maybe so they don't get burned, and they can understand sort of what has real potential and what's just a pump and dump rug style project. So we built that stuff, and one of the things that we built during the course of that was a predictive mechanism to what we were doing. Um, and it wasn't exactly a growth business because it worked. But what it told you was, during the middle of crypto winter, don't buy crypto. So in that sense, it worked perfectly. Uh, Assets weren't very highly rated, and they started to come back when they started to come back 2 weeks before we actually saw people come back into the space. So that, I think, I mean, that was great to see it work. We predicted a depegging of USDC because we saw people swapping to Tether and DAI, and we had put a classifier on and said, well, you shouldn't be swapping out of something worth $1 for something else worth $1 unless you thought there's a problem with the thing you're holding that was worth $1. And so obviously what we saw was, the Silicon Valley Bank, who was underpinning some of the assets of USDC. There's a problem. People inside in the know were able to get out of it and into other stable currencies. And just before the asset depegged, about 3 hours before everybody else. So that worked, and we realized we were kind of onto something. But being in the business, telling people not to buy crypto in the crypto space was not going to be a sustainable business. And so, we went to Consensus in 2023, and while we were there, we showed people, some ways to predict near term asset price movements. It got the attention of a few hedge funds. So we gave them the API keys, and they played around with it, and then came back to us and said, "This is great. I want to do something with it, but it moves too fast. There's too much engineering here. Would you be willing if I just funded an account to trade it for us?" So we went out and got a couple other partners and started trading assets on their behalf, and got pretty good at it. And we realized, like, okay, that's way easier than the thing we were trying to do. So let's put a bunch of effort into getting better precision on the predictions and figure out where the gaps are, and yeah, just go out there and try to build that business, because it's still steering people away from the risks and things that maybe they weren't able to protect themselves against. And if you look at our logo, the logo right here in my avatar, my uh, you'll notice that the top side of the avatar, the down chevron, is in pink, and that's not just a design choice. Like that's a hint because we realized when the market goes on a run down, when it drops or dumps or falls off a cliff, it doesn't work just like normal equities markets, and we figured that out pretty early on, and said, well, how do we get the signal into the system that's going to tell us about that? Because that's the most useful piece. Anybody that's sat through one of these like flash dumps in the market and watched everybody wreck and run realizes that a down market doesn't work like an up market. Like a down market can wipe out $1 trillion of market cap over the course of an hour or two, but it takes months or weeks to build up to that, right? So that's that's the genesis of our logo right there. So that just a bit of trivia or history there. And we realized, well, what's missing from these models that doesn't show up yet is what people think. And people are pretty good at kind of figuring out like, oh no, there's a dump about to happen. And how do we get that into the system as fast as we can to be able to do something about it? So we realized you got to incentivize to give people something of value, put up something of risk. And if you're going to do that, there should be something to win because they're not just going to sit around waiting for free to tell you like, hey, this is what I think is going to happen. And that's the way we started to build these games, right? Let me invite Romy up here for a second, right? And I think right around that time, we we got to the point where we're like, okay, um, let's bring in roaming and let's bring in Yeti. And I don't know, we're going to invite Yeti if he wants to speak too. But we got them in right around then as we started to go live on the Mantle AI Fest platform. We were building games. The first one was a high-low game. We'd set a price line based on AI, and then people could take the over or under on it. And it started to bring in a bunch of users, and we realized, oh, not only are people good at this, but they're also interested in sort of winning, in these kind of games. And so it's a pretty good source of, not just a good source of signal, but a really good way to feed into the already fairly accurate machine learning models to figure out when these movements were going to happen. Is that how you guys found us, Romy?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think back. That was a fun time. I think Yeti came across you in the very early days of the Mantle Fest for Spot or Hi-Fi Lo-Fi. Um, and from there we talked a lot uh, about what you guys were up to and really what captured us. I mean, this was in the midst of everyone launching like AI rappers and AI agents sort of stuff, and it was full AI hype with very little substance behind what most places were doing. There was all sorts of like prediction AI driven trading setups and things launching on Telegram and different crypto projects, but most of them seem to be pretty empty behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, yeah. From our perspective, that was pretty demoralizing to watch because we knew. I mean, the company Tala in Boston was using AI, obviously, but different kinds, not just LLMs, but and then the company I'd started prior to that, that's the biggest media distribution company in the world, Social Flow. We used AI to classify and then also optimize the deployment. So if you have like Social Flow, if you're the New York Times, who's a customer, and they have 1,000 pieces of content they could publish over the main handle on X or something like that. Which one should you publish and when, right? And it's a solvable problem, but it's a lot of math and a lot of learning and optimization, and you're measuring it against different topics and how much topics are worth in live real time. So, it also brought in a bunch of data. I used it to predict the 2016 election, and I only got like 5 voting districts wrong using the methods that we were using. So, um, definitely a great learning experience for both those companies. But watching people come in and wrapping GPT and then calling themselves an AI company was it was funny, but it was also kind of ridiculous watching them get $10 million in funding and uh, and then go away and build nothing, right? So uh, we we have neural networks that we use to predict the price movements, right? And so we're constantly retraining them on the fly every few seconds. They're building a model, crushing data, trying to figure out. And it's, we have long short-term memory is one of the types, and gated recurrent units, and convolutional long short-term, temporal convolutional, and there's all these moving average blends and this stuff going on, and each one of them maps to a different kind of market condition, like choppy markets up to the up in choppy markets, up in smooth markets. Different models perform best during different times. So we also had an AI set of machine learning classifiers that would figure out what kind of market is it, and then map the model to the market, and then pick the best model in those conditions, and predict which one was going to do best in the next one. So we actually went out and built all this real AI stuff, thinking, oh, people are building AI companies, like that's great. But what really happened is just what you said. Like people showed up on the scene, built some sort of wrapper around GPT, uh, said they were going to use a token, and rugged and ran away on everybody. Like that. That was again not a great thing for the ecosystem, because all it did was convince people like none of this stuff was real. And yet we were dumb enough to stick through it. Like we actually thought, well, like we're going to build something with AI, and we're going to go out and actually make it useful to people. And the way we're going to do it is have them share in the upside of the value it creates. And the way we'll do that is we'll use a token that is deflationary economics. So if you just hold it, you're good. And if you win it, you're winning something that is in theory capable of increasing in value. And if we're burning tokens out of existence through the use of them in the game, then there's even further pressure to increase the value in it. So what should come out of that is, if you're burning tokens and people are trying to compete to win them, and they're potentially being worth more and more as time goes on, because there's pressure to buy them back and burn them, that the people competing will eventually figure out, oh, I need to get these as early as I can, hold on to them, and if I'm going to compete to win them, I should be making good guesses and good predictions. So I'm going to try to come up with ways to do that. And what we will do is basically massively decentralize the human part of markets, and then get that signal in and reward people for how good that signal is. And so it's kind of how we came up with that idea. And it was like, all right, like if the price of FIDE is going to increase and I'm playing for FIDE, like I want to get as much of it in as we can. So that's like a primer of like how the tokenomics, we see the tokenomics working for everybody, right? Before I go any further, does that do you think that's the way people understand it, or do you think we need to do more talks and more writing on that? You there, or did I drop off? Can I get a thumbs up if anybody can hear me? Oh no, I see Ace. Anybody? How's that? Dilly, I see you. I see you. All right, Radio Frog, thumbs up. Dilly, all right, cool. All right, Romy, we can't hear you. We'll come back to you, but all right. So thanks, everybody. So we just decided, you know, if this is going to be something where everybody is putting up some risk to tell us kind of what they think and help us figure it out, we'll create a way for everybody to get sort of paid back from that. And that's what we did. That's why we used the FIDE AI token. not just be like, well, we have a token and we're going to pump the token and we're going to use the token to fund this other stuff. We realized like, no, let's make the token like let's use the token for what it's for, which is to give credit to people in a system and then track the value creation through the system that way. And so we built a token with the use case of the utility in mind, and then just made the economics of it work such that holding it is good, winning it's even better, and accruing more over time is something that people are going to want to do. So when I was answering the question last week about how it's not propped up by psychology, it's propped up by economics. That's what I meant. So yeah, um, you with us, Romy? Let's see if you're back.
Check, check. Can you hear me now?
All right, there you go. Yeah,
Woo!
uh, yeah. So um, I was asking, like, do you think that I don't know if I've done a good enough job explaining that, or how we probably need to communicate it a little bit more clearly because I think we're really differentiated in the way that our token works and how it works within the game and how we came about to that those set of decisions. But I don't know that we've done a really great job of explaining it yet.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think my biggest concern is that when Surge goes live, people are going to get so caught up in playing Surge that we're going to have to work on that education piece around the token and the tokenomics, right? I think it's going
Yeah,
to be everyone's going to be having so much fun. They're going to get really hooked into it. They're going to love the fast gameplay and playing with the token. And I think that's a really important piece. It was what hooked. Well, in all honesty, it's what hooked me when Yeti first brought you guys and MetaFide into the conversation last year, and he said, "Hey, there's this AI project." I went, no, no, thanks." And he said, "No, take another look." Oh, cool. Okay. Actually, they are doing something different. They've got all the substance behind them. They understand. They're not just a wrapper. They've got these systems that are trading really accurately, and the concept of having the AI predictions offset by human signal to me was just like such a killer app, right? And I think
yeah,
people don't quite grasp that because they're focused on the gameplay, and that's going to be the real winning opportunity for us.
yeah. Well, I mean, and I've seen it like today. Like to give you an example, we were on the call with a pretty major chain today, and they're looking at doing something to incentivize our users. Super great conversation. I can't drop the alpha yet because we didn't agree to the terms yet, but it's definitely under strong consideration where we're playing in the context of a demo, and it occurred to me that like that we on the call, us and them, are basically almost like you know too into the game to sort of like break our attention off to go do something else because it happens all the time in our company calls where we all get together and test it together and then you're sitting there and going like, oh, we really got to get to business here because everybody's like playing the game and like people say like make the product that you would want to use too, right? Like don't just try to go out and look for some random solution that needs a problem. So we actually built the games we want to build and the games we want to play. And sometimes I think we did too good of a job on the games so far so that it like detracts from the actual economic opportunity that they represent. And then I think, you know what? No, that's fine. That's actually how it should work because it's a really good way to do it if it's so fun to do that you do the right thing because it's awesome and fun. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I've seen it. Like I said today, I saw an example of that where it's like, oh, we really should pay attention to some other stuff and get that done instead of just playing the game and running through a bunch of different scenarios with people about how the game works. But um, I don't know, that part's been a lot of fun too, because I think spots really sporty, and range feels like a different kind of sport. But we also added the ability in range that, I guess this is some alpha that isn't out there yet, but in range, you're going to build your candle. So let's say you build a 5-minute candle. Everybody in the game builds their own 5-minute candle. And what you see is your candle, the market candle, and then the top performing candle in the game, as defined by the lowest amount of variance that you're playing against. And so you see your candle, market candle, the top candle, but the top candle is the one that's most likely to bust out because it's got so little variance. And you're almost rooting against that candle the way you'd be like rooting for your horse in a horse race. And we put in the ability, like, obviously, I'm not so dumb as to put in like a free text entry so people can just talk smack back and forth at each other. But we left the ability to take any emoji and put it into a tray, and you can basically send emojis streaming up the stream as it's going. So you're like, that game's going to be fun to play too. And we expect everybody will have their country flags, and you know I can imagine a bajillion eggplant emojis and poop emojis and stuff flying around in there, and that's actually okay. Like, I think it's gonna attract, like, you're rooting for your horse or a professional wrestler or something like that, right? So like, it should feel fun, and it should get you to a point where you're like, oh, I like doing this. It rewards me, but also the time I spend doing it's pretty fun too. And so uh, there's a bunch of other Easter eggs that we're planning for, like the leaderboards and stuff that will be rolled out that the alpha test hasn't got to see yet. But the way we look at what we're doing is, if you go back to the beginning, we've always tried to make it so that we're going to steer people in the right direction. Because I can't live with myself if what I'm doing is finding ways to, like, pry people out of their hard earned cash and not give them a chance to make their lives better, right? Like, you can make money a bunch of different ways. Like, you don't have to hurt people to do it. If you can help them while you do it, that's even better. So when you look at sort of where MetaFide started and where we are now, we started as a way to warn people about which assets were fake, which ones are real, so that they can make the decision to get into the ones that should make sense for them. Where we are now, it's a shorter time frame, so it's not like you're looking out over 2, 3, 4, week period and making investment decisions. You're actually acting in a closed market with a finite interval. But what we're doing is, the more helpful you are to figuring out the exit price in those intervals, the better you're going to get paid. And we think that that's the way to do it. So we think that's the fair way to do it. And also, you're getting paid out in FIDE. Let's make a way so that the FIDE that you're winning has a way to appreciate in value, so that the competition for them intensifies. And as the competition intensifies, obviously you're rewarding the people in the game who are giving and contributing the most value the whole time too. So if you're some grandmom and you just want to hold FIDE because you think FIDE applied to AI models plus financial markets equals increased yield, then you should be able to do that without having a PhD in machine learning. And then if you're just really good at judging markets and reading them, there should be a way for you to share in the success of what we're doing. We have a whole roadmap of things we're doing on the other side of this once we get this out in the market. But I think that's a pretty good primer of, like, how did you get there and why did you do that and how did you come up with that, like the tokenomic model? What's that for? I thought it'd probably be helpful to kind of answer those things. So hopefully we've at least done a little bit of service to that. Anything before we start to wrap here, Romy?
No, I think you've summarized it pretty well. I think
AKA, nah, you said enough.
I think the beauty of what we're doing, and especially what you guys have been doing for quite some time now, is there's a lot more depth to it than anyone really realizes. And as soon as anyone starts digging in, they realize the substance behind it all. And that's the beauty of MetaFide. That's why I'm here. That's why Yeti's here. That's why all the community is here and has stuck with us to this point. And I'm just really excited for where we go next.
Yeah, these next 60 days are going to be awesome. So it's you know, we're right about time. So I'm looking forward to that. Continue following along with us, right? Everybody, follow us on discord.gg/Fide-token. Find us on YouTube at MetaFide and find us on X at Fide_AI. And make sure you're registered for the waitlist at surge.metafide.io, because if you want to get some early tokens and you want to get some early access to the game, the only way to do it is to make sure you're on the waitlist. So waitlist is filling up. We're rapidly approaching 200K people on the waitlist. We'll give priority to certain people. We'll publish the mechanism for that pretty soon. But I just want to say, thanks for sticking with us, everybody. And we're about ready to take the wrapper off it and let everybody have a look. So thanks for building with us, and thanks for believing in us, and for helping us truly give us ideas and feedback to help make this better for everybody. So let's stay on this a little while longer together, and let's get there. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So take care, everybody. Thanks a lot.
MetaFide is the only AI-powered Bitcoin prediction game where traders compete in real time to forecast BTC's price in a fast 1 to 5 minute round. Test your skills against global players. Take on 1x risk with the ability to win multiplied payouts and prize pots. The more accurate and early, the better the outcome. Pre-register now for early access to generational wealth.